he was suggesting that the same thing another guy had suggested, that we do like this opening recording, like have an opening song, but every week it's just like another part has been added to it, like a Neverman song.
Oh yes, you mentioned that before.
Yeah,
yes, you mentioned that before.
So this is the second guy that's mentioned this to me, like that we should do this.
God.
And I'm like, this is strange, because I was like, you realize it's so.
They're just giving us more work. They're just giving us more work. Did they talk to one another about that though?
I don't know. Well, it's possible. Like, I mean, they know each other, but I don't know if they talk to each other.
I see.
But the thing is like, what Liam was telling me was that he's like, I think you should do like nothing more than like a 10 or 15 second addition. Like literally, you just come in with like a held synthesizer note, like it could be a D or a C or whatever, and then your job is to add the next. Like you could make it a chord, or you could add like a beat, and it's literally just like 10 to 15 seconds worth of work, and that's it. And just and then by episode 50, it might be something really fucking noisy and fucking intrusive. It could be. And you can decide, do you add more on top or do you add more on the length of it, but every time it's just 10 or 15 seconds of work.
Yeah.
So cause I even said to him, I said, because you've said you're not really making music right now. Like you said, you haven't been doing much, and I didn't want to be like, hey, I want you to start writing music now for the podcast.
I'm not averse to that idea. Yes, as long as we keep it short.
All right.
I'll let you start it though. Start with one of your. If I can make a request, start with one of those amazing synth sounds that you've got from the Polybrute. Something that evolves over the 15 seconds.
I do. The sound's already in my head.
You know what I mean. It's got. You send that to me.
Perfect.
And I'll fuck it up. Great style.
So do you want to start? I think we finished with one of my songs, I think, last time, and so that we should jump in with one of your songs. I mean, I don't mean necessarily like a Peri Urban song or just a song off your list, but whatever you prefer, whatever you want. Because I know we've only done one Peri Urban song, I think, so far. I think we have, because you had one picked from Nine Brains last time, and then you had something else. I don't think we actually listened to it. Did you? Did we? We didn't, but that's okay. It's funny. It's difficult for me to choose. I find it horrible choosing. I understand.
Because I go through waves of enthusiasm and then just sheer panic about whether my stuff's any good or not. Still have that sort of imposter syndrome kind of thing going on. But I did go to an album of mine called Wizard, which was recorded when I retired. I was recording it in the process of getting towards the end of my career and moving into retirement. So it's a very happy sounding album because of that. Not overly sort of sentimental or anything, but that was the one that I went to. That was the album I went to when you pointed out that there was none of my tracks on the list. So yeah, maybe we start with something from Wizard. What do you think?
I'm definitely down for that, because I like that album a lot. And I like the album cover because it's one of the rare ones that has a picture of you on the front of it.
It does, right? Yes.
And I love your shirt. I love your hat. I love your glasses. So I mean, there's nothing not to love about this album.
Yeah,
including the album artwork. So it's just
that was a picture a silly picture my wife took at Christmas time. I had the glasses were given to me by a friend of mine, and they're guitars, aren't they?
Yes.
And the hat, my wife knitted that hat for me. So I was showing it all off with my Zappa t-shirt. Somebody bought that for me as well. So it was all presents that I was wearing, which is why the photograph was taken. But it turned out to be such a good one. By the time I'd manipulated it a little bit, I thought, yeah, that'll do. That's kind of shows a happy guy retiring from his hell job. I think we'll do Tower of Lies. I don't know why we'll do Tower of Lies, but we'll do Tower of Lies.
All right, I'm down for that.
Yeah, so this album was recorded when I was happy. Like, I'm not always happy. And originally the album was called Zappa because I just thought it was appropriate that I would give a big thanks to the man for all the inspiration he's given me over the years. And also, from a purely mercenary point of view, I thought I might be able to scrape some of the search engine results for Zappa my way. That didn't work out. So I thought, well, no, I won't. I'll change the name of the album. See, you can, when nobody listens to you, you can do this. You see, you can just completely change albums, erase them, put them back in. So eventually I ended up calling it Wizard, which is spelt differently, Wizzerd. Because I just at this point I felt like a bit of a wizard. I felt as though I just got out of jail. That's what retiring feels like. It feels like you've just been released from jail. I've never been in jail, but I can imagine that it must be great to get out. And it was like that. It was like, oh, at last. So the whole album is kind of in that kind of zone. And the Tower of Lies that we're going to play now was a track that had lyrics and had a tune and everything. One of those rare occasions where I didn't record it, lost the lyrics, and couldn't remember anything about them. And when I tried to sort of reconstruct it, it just didn't work. It just wasn't there. It had gone. So I made it into an instrumental. But you'll hear the guitar part is kind of, you'll hear how it could have been a song, but it's not. And that guitar was a little guitar I bought. It's a little acoustic guitar I bought for £50 in a local sort of second-hand shop. And it was a really cheap Italian thing, really poorly made. But I picked it up in the shop and had a wee look at it and just sort of brushed the strings, and it had a really unique sound, a kind of almost skanky kind of not together sound, but which was really unusual and I really liked it. But then one day it just fell apart. It used to be the guitar that I would fiddle about on, and it used to sit next to me here, and one day I was sitting here and I just heard this doing, and I looked down and the guitar was just lying in half. It had just, the neck had broken away from the body. I mean, I looked at how it was constructed. I was amazed that it could hold the strings. I mean, it should have fallen apart. In fact, it didn't even have a fixed bridge. The bridge was a floating bridge. Sometimes if I'd nudged it, I had to nudge it back, you know. So that was a really skanky guitar. So you'll hear that on here too.
Nice.
So this is Tower of Lies by Peri Urban from the album Wizard.
That was fantastic, Peri. Fantastic.
A nice happy tune.
It is, yeah. It captured emotions. I don't let myself go there for whatever reason. Some sort of ego thing about sounding dark, like Nine Inch Nails all the time or something. But that was amazing, and I loved right off the bat. It reminded me a lot of Porcupine Tree from their album Light Bulb Sun. I can't remember the exact song. It might be Last Chance to Evacuate Planet Earth Before It's Recycled. I think that might be the song. I don't know if you're familiar with that one or not.
Yeah, until we had a conversation last time, that was the only Porcupine Tree album that I owned.
Oh, really? Okay.
So maybe there is an influence there that I didn't even know.
And then that a lot of it to do with the way he double tracked like the acoustic guitars and stuff. You know, like it had the same timing and bounce between the two speakers that I experienced when he plays too. Like that's instinctual. I don't know if you could even do that intentionally, because it's more about how you the way you react to your own guitar playing, right?
Yeah.
And it was, and I thought that was great. Like it sounded delightful on the ears too, and the synthesizer instrument you're playing. Like I imagined in my mind, because you're a fan of the iPad, that was something you're using the iPad to do.
Yes, it was
expressiveness.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great. I love the stuttering effects you kept going back to. Not an effect. It was like it may have been an effect, but it was just like part of the riff that was happening like continuously throughout the song. It was like one of the only things that is continuous through the song was that, and at the end there, like the reverse guitars, and it sounded like there was some ebo in there and everything was kind of washing back and forth together, and I love doing stuff like that, so I love hearing someone else do it, because you did it in a way I wouldn't do it, or maybe wouldn't have done it before, now I might try and do something like that now, but it was, and the mood changes, there was at least 3 distinct mood changes where I just felt like, oh, what a way to go, like just because that's to me that's where like where people can really define themselves, is how they, not just what they present, but what they present and what they'll be willing to present after that, because like that, what your instincts are to go from one spot to another really show your musical intuition. And that's where things, I think, sound uniquely you, because you go places I might not go and someone else might not go, but because it's unexpected and executed flawlessly, it leaves you sort of breathless. You feel like you've fallen off a cliff a little bit, but then you've fallen off a cliff but landed on a beanbag chair, so it was all good.
Yeah. It's very.
I couldn't help but think like.
Go on.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go on.
I was gonna say I just couldn't help but think that like my headphones weren't comfortable enough for a song that delightful on the ears. Like I need velvet velour for a song that sounds that delicious.
Your headphones just not up to the task. Yeah. Well, thanks for saying all those nice things. That's good to hear. Yeah. Because it's funny. You never quite know how other people are going to hear a song. And it's quite a strange mix. As I was listening to it, I'm thinking, I said this was going to be like an acoustic guitar song, but it's not really like that. But yeah. So it's nice to hear another take on it.
Well, there you go, and I like that. I've done that before, where I've pulled up an acoustic guitar for the inspiration of the song and have a microphone in front of me, and next thing you know, it's just like I'm using it like a synthesizer more than I'm like a guitar, because it's this other thing came out of it. It was still there, but it's not the acoustic guitar song I imagined in my head. But it's best to follow the instinct and ignore the original intuition.
Of course, yeah.
I think anyway.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. We just have to go with it. You don't fight it. You just go where it's leading, because you just learn to trust yourself eventually.
Yeah, I agree. All right.
Should we do one of yours next?
I think we should, and I feel like going down that path of sort of like a song that has like a similar kind of vibe to it, and the only song on my list, I think that would actually, there might be 2 that kind of go there, but I think the one that would go the closest to that kind of feel would be the Mike Patton song, which is Deep Down by Mondo Cane. So I think that's where I'd like to go. So Mondo Cane, as far as I understand it, is a project Mike Patton did because he was, he just was really into Italian opera at the time, and it's named after, I'm pretty sure, an Italian documentary about some musicians or something. I'm not sure because it's it's not like a popular movie. I don't know if there's any version in English. I haven't had a chance to watch it or anything, but he was married to an Italian woman and living in Italy for a while, and I guess he decided he would take advantage of that and made this like Italian pop record. It's like Italian easy listening pop opera with obvious Mike Patton instincts, because if you listen to it all the way through, it's definitely a Mike Patton album, but there's no other Mike Patton album that you would label as Italian pop music or easy listening that I can think of. And I remember when we listened to his album with what's his name, John Cata, you had compared that song to the Ennio Morricone, and this to me is more like even more Ennio Morricone than that song.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure he even lists him as like his biggest inspiration for this whole album too. So
cool.
Do you have that track in front of you anywhere?
I do. Yes, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. So this song, I don't know if I would like the song if it wasn't Mike Patton. I have to say this. I don't know if this is one of those things that I give the musician I should say more credit than he deserves. It's a beautiful song. I think it's an amazing song. But if this was done by Justin Timberlake, I don't think I'd like the song. It's very possible.
Deep, deep down.
Deep, deep down. Ora sì, guardami, vieni qui vicino a me. Adesso è il momento giusto, adesso è il momento vero, adesso sì ti posso chiedere di stare più vicino a me. Deep, deep dentro di me deep down, già lo so deep down, so che tu deep down, ami me deep down. Dentro di te deep down, tu lo sai deep down, cosa sei deep down, tu per me deep down. Dentro di me deep down, amo te deep down, solo te deep down, amo te deep down. Deep, deep down. Deep, deep down. Deep, deep down. Tu lo sai, so che sai, sì lo sai, cosa sei per me. E questo è il momento giusto, e questo è il momento vero, e questo è il momento tenero, di stare più vicino a me. Deep, deep down. Deep down. Deep, deep down. Deep, deep down.
Yeah, that is a strange one. I can see what you mean when you say, if that was recorded by somebody really uncool, you'd just dismiss it. You go, oh, I'm not listening to that. But because it is by somebody cool, you're kind of listening to it with that in mind, I think. At least I'm not. I don't know much about Mike Patton. He's your guy, so I just listen to what you sort of send my way. And this is, I don't really know what to say about this, except it does remind me. It reminds me of all the authentic influences that obviously come into it, like you mentioned Ennio Morricone. Ennio Morricone did do sort of poppy stuff, I think. It wasn't all soundtrack stuff. I don't know enough about that, but I've certainly heard this style of thing done before in the context of a movie. It sounds to me like it's the opening credits for a movie called Deep Down, and it's got some kind of weird Italian kind of existential sexual tension kind of thing going on. I have no idea what the lyrics are about, but it sounds very authentic to that. If anything, the reverb is too good for the 60s. The only people who had reverb like that in the 60s was probably Columbia in Los Angeles, I think. Was it Columbia or CBS Studios? The CBS Studios, they had the best reverb in the world, apparently. So that reverb I'm hearing there is very much a kind of recreation of that to create the space. I think, I might be completely wrong, it's maybe recorded in a big room and I don't know what I'm talking about. But you know how 60s stuff has, first of all, it's all in mono. So even if it is a stereo recording, the reverb is likely to be in mono, so you get that kind of a different sound. The little bit of fuzz guitar in there was just perfect. That was very Ennio Morricone. So yeah, I liked it. I'm glad I listened to it, but I would never seek out any more of it. I would never go, I need more of that. I need to buy this album. I might listen to another couple of tracks later on just to see what the hell is going on with this guy. But yeah, it was good. It was enjoyable. It wasn't offensive. Wasn't profound, or maybe there is a profundity there I just don't see.
I think if you do venture through the album, you'll find a handful of songs you find are quite attractive. It's just because it's got a very big variance of song to song. There isn't another song on the album like Deep Down. Deep Down is its own thing,
right? Too.
And I feel like a huge fool because as you were talking, I was scrolling through some information about the album. That song is by Ennio Morricone. That's a cover, actually.
Well, there you go. That's why it sounds authentic. Oh, right. Yeah. Is that
so? That was now there is actually another song by him on the album, but the rest of them are I didn't even realize this till now. I feel like a fool. Every song is a cover song of another Italian pop musician, and it's but I would not know that because whenever Mike Patton covers a song, he does his own thing, except for this couple few like exceptions. If he does like an old soulful Motown song, he does it like note for note, or if he does like what's that guy, Jacques Brel?
Oh,
he likes to cover Jacques Brel sometimes.
Oh, right.
So he does like Sachet Chant le Jackie. It's
right.
It's in French. It's in French and everything. It's perfect.
Yeah. Oh well. Do we know the provenance of Deep Down? Then do we know the provenance of the song? Was the song associated with a movie or anything, or is it just we don't know anything about that?
You know what? I'm not sure, and I probably should have gone deeper once I realized my shame.
Well, so we're all about the music. We don't really need to know the background of things. It's just interesting if it comes up. But
true,
it's all about the deep listening, And I was deep listening to that one, I have to say. I went into the spirit of it.
I'm glad.
Yeah. So that was when you bring these things to me, when it's mainly you these days that brings these things to me that I would never listen to.
Yeah.
But I do them the honor of giving them the same deep listen I would give to anything else, and it's always kind of freaky when I do that. It's always kind of freaky. It's kind of whoa. This experience is not like I thought it would be because, to some degree, that's quite a superficial track. It's quite sort of poppy, and it's not got finger snaps on it, but you can hear them. It should have them. And it's very lightweight, and I don't normally deep listen to lightweight stuff, but when I do, it's a different experience, which is good.
It is, and I don't often go there myself either. And I feel like exchanging music with you is allowing me to actually like open up to things too that I normally wouldn't, and probably for the same reason I imagine as well, because there's many things that you bring out that most people would not know that I know, and then there's just as much stuff that you listen to I've never heard of before, and I know it's vice versa, and that's kind of neat, because like it's everybody I know, if I say Mike Patton, they know what I'm talking about. But it's not because Mike Patton's popular. It's because I'm such a musical influence in everybody's lives, the people I know. I'm sure you're the same way in many ways, right? So that's probably an experience you have. Or like we talked about, bringing friends over, making them listen to your mix with the speakers in the right spots, and there's most people don't have friends like that do that to them, right? So it's.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. Yeah, no, I don't. I've only really had one friend that was like that. I used to play music at parties and things when we had friends in the old days, and I could empty the living room in about 2 minutes flat. It's very easy to do. So no, I don't. I know I'm probably a different person from you in that regard. I haven't ever been thought of by, at least I don't think so, by my circle as the music guy, because all the people I knew were musicians.
Okay.
So they all had their own things going on. So, they would kind of, they would bring stuff to me, and I would bring stuff to them, and there was always an element of ego was involved, because look at this great track that I've brought you, and you should really be thankful for me bringing you this great track. And that was me as well as them, both sides, So there was always a kind of impetus to go, it's not that good. You know what I mean? Like a kind of kickback kind of thing. So no, I was never the influencer in my group.
Really, eh?
And there wasn't an influencer. Never had an influencer in our group. It was always within the band, within the three of us that were in the band, there was good rapport there about listening to stuff, because we knew it was going to inform our art. But anybody outside the band, it was a little bit, maybe we were a bit protective of the space, I don't know. But I certainly don't feel that now. Listening to stuff with you is a completely different experience.
Well, that's good. Because
quite a very positive one as well.
I'm always envious of you having that, because the musicians I hung out with growing up and the different bands I was in, I would love for that to be our relationship, to have this back and forth, where we had that ego thing. And there was a bit of it with one friend, but it still was very one-sided. Like for every 10 albums I'd bring him, he'd bring me one. And 9 times out of 10, the albums he brought me, I knew them well. He'd be like, check these guys out. And I'd be like, yeah, they're pretty good. And he'd be like, what? They're not amazing? Like, you're not going to pat me on the back and say how awesome this stuff is? And I'd say, well, I saw them open for AC/DC. These guys, I saw these guys open for AC/DC 6 months ago. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
You saw AC/DC and these guys opened for them? Like, that kind of stuff. And it was just this, and it became like I was this pretentious dick when it came to the music, and I didn't have like the pretentious ego to throw back at me, and it sucked. I kind of wish I had someone with the same enthusiasm, to be like, yeah, you think Gentle Giant's awesome? Here's Soft Machine, like.
Yeah.
My friends are more.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, see, my friends are more like, hey, have you ever heard of the Beatles? And I'd be like, are you kidding me? What kind?
Yeah, I guess it's just the different sort of circles that we evolved in. Yeah, I don't know why it was that almost all of my friends were musicians. Yeah, almost all. It just was the way it was.
Well, mine too. I'm saying mine too, but they had crappy taste in music. Like they couldn't compare to my adventurism.
Right.
Yeah,
no, I was lucky. I found Alan was the one actually. Alan Martin, who was in the band with me. I found him in 1978 through another friend, and when you first meet people, you think, oh, that guy's a bit of a blowhard, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I felt very out of the conversation. I kept a wee diary about it actually, so I can go back and read it. But over time, it became apparent that we were on the same wavelength, or we were on parallel wavelengths. So the stuff he would bring and the stuff I would bring was always sort of it was always relevant, always relevant. He was a big Ashra fan, big Klaus Schulze fan, that kind of thing. And we sort of met with Tangerine Dream, that was where we kind of hung out together musically, krautrock, and then he was into Caravan and stuff like that. But there was always Yeah, it's good to get into that kind of mutual listening environment where you can bring stuff and it's not just it's not like a test. You know, it's not like you're not being tested to say whether it's good or it's bad. It's just there, you know, and you can make something of it.
Well, yeah, I'll just say, like, I gotta say that my friends, when I said my friends had a terrible taste in music, my musician friends, I mean, their taste in music I didn't feel like they were pushing themselves deep enough into all realms all the time. So I felt like every time they were to bring me something, I was always 10 steps ahead. You know, I felt that way, and it wasn't maybe rational. It could have been an egotistical thing, you know. And not to say these people didn't bring me great music to listen to, because all my musician friends have introduced me to different bands that are in my record collection that I wouldn't have listened to unless they had suggested it, likely, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But you know, that's all I wanted to say.
I think you rescued the situation. Yeah, I think you'll be all right. How about we venture off into the realm of ambient electronics as a complete contrast to what we just listened to?
So I think you're thinking Fractal Dragon.
No, I'm thinking a Blank Banshee.
Oh, okay. Well, it's because I don't know Blank Banshee, but I know Fractal Dragon, so that's I got excited.
Yeah, well, Fractal Dragon's there. We'll get to them, but Blank Banshee it's not dissimilar. I mean, yeah. I can't remember where I came across this person, but he has records. He has vinyl records, which you can get from his website. He's got stickers and all sorts on his website. So if you go to his Bandcamp page, you'll get a link there for his website, which is just blankbanshee.com. And if you're really into him, you can send him a few quid and he'll send you some stickers or a vinyl album. I like this music because the track we're going to play is from the album called Mega, and it's a track called Frozen Flame. And what I like about this one is it's a kind of got this wonderfully sort of disconnected musical narrative, if that even makes any sense. It's like, you know that, okay, we've talked a lot about arrangements and how you have a block of music which has an arrangement to it, and then another block of music which has maybe a similar arrangement or a completely different one, but you're talking about blocks of music. This one seems to shift from second to second. It's almost kind of toying with you. Make sense of this, you know. But then when you actually listen to it, it does make a wonderful kind of sense in the most kind of scattered, broken mirror kind of way, which I love. And quite a lot of the Blank Banshee stuff is like that. It's all kind of challenging in a way. There's some vocals on some of it. This one doesn't have vocals, and a lot of the vocals are sampled, whether they're samples from records or samples from musicians that he's worked with. I don't know. One of these people who's very, very tight-lipped about who they are, where they are, what they're doing, you know, doesn't tell you any of that stuff, so you've really only got the music to go on, which again I quite like from time to time, because then you can fill in all the gaps with these wonderful sort of fantasies about what the music's actually saying. This is a track called Frozen Flame from the album Mega by Blank Banshee.
I do dig that Frozen Flame song. That was good. The album artwork, very simplistic. It looks like something you would have made with like an old clip art program from the 90s or something, with the magenta gradient in the background, and that screen, that reminds me, as soon as I saw it, it made me think of Vaporwave. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with Vaporwave music?
Yes, yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, like that. They take like songs from the 80s and just slow them down.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And there was something about like those vocal samples that was being used, that were shifting, around, that were being used as like these bizarre shifting melodic instruments. Reminded me of that. Like it sounded like they were in the same way being manipulated, the same way that they're being played lower than the original person was singing them. Even if it was a person, it also could have been some sort of frequency modulated vowel, because it could have. There's nothing with music like that. You never are really sure what you're hearing, right? And I like the rubbery, bouncy, like Phil Collin drum fills you heard a few times in there, it was a good song. I dig it, and it's something that, like, I'm guessing just based off the way the next song was beginning, there's probably a good chance there's a lot of the music in there I probably wouldn't want to listen to, or I'd probably have to like wade through an album like that, to be honest with you, just based on the first 5 seconds of the next song, because I found it really unappealing. Yeah. But that song, Frozen Flame, right from beginning to end, I thought was fantastic, and and the album artwork is consistent like that, as from seeing here on the rest of his Bandcamp page here, and I kind of hope that kind of vibe continues in there, because there's probably a lot of songs there I'm going to enjoy.
Yeah, I think there's a good variety of stuff in there. I guess some you might not like, but it's a little treasure trove, that guy. Yeah.
I don't want to judge. It's just the first 5 seconds, right? Like there's someone singing at the beginning of that song, and it was heavily auto-tuned. And when I hear heavy auto-tune, I'm automatically like, that's a bad impression right off the bat. And it's not, and that's just me being an old man. And I know I'm not an old man yet. Like I'm still kind of like, but compared to the kids, I feel like an old man. I'm talking about music I listened to 30 years ago, and going like, like you know what I'm talking about. So it's becomes this like strange thing where there's things that I find socially acceptable, and the older I get, the more things I find socially unacceptable become like contemporary classics.
Oh yeah.
Like there's these bands I heard growing up I thought were garbage, and now people talk about them like the Led Zeppelin. Yeah. And I'm going like, what? How are those guys even? Why aren't they all dead? I don't understand how these guys have a career. I don't mean dead in a bad way, like I mean like someone should kill them because they're no good. I mean, I just picture them not succeeding and ending up homeless and behind a dumpster because their music's terrible.
Oh yeah. We've all got musicians we'd love to see behind that dumpster, but sadly they're doing a lot better than us. So, yeah.
I think we're gonna have to go with Dave Lombardo. Dave Lombardo and the Rites of Percussion.
Okay.
And this one here, I'm not sure. Are you familiar with Dave Lombardo?
I am not. He's a percussionist. I know that.
Yeah, he's most well known to be the drummer for Slayer, one of the big four, and out of those the big four, I think Slayer is the only like real band. Not to say that Metallica and those guys aren't real bands. I just mean Slayer has like that edge, that screams, we're artists, whereas the other guys have like this corporate sheen to them. I kind of figure, But that aside, Dave Lombardo. Nowadays, he's the drummer for Mr. Bungle, which is one of Mike Patton's bands. And they've kind of gone thrash metal, which is probably part of the reason they hired Lombardo. Mike Patton has another band with Dave Lombardo on drums called Dead Cross, and with the guitar player from the Melvins. And it's just more thrashy, just crazy in-your-face metal. And he's also was the drummer for Fontamas for, I think, one tour or one album as well, which is another Mike Patton project. But he's also drums with the bands like Testament and all these high level, really hardcore metal bands. So that being said, this is not a metal album at all. This album here is sort of like this, like kind of like electronic, rhythmic jazz kind of experimental thing. Apparently, Mike Patton has been bugging Dave to make an album like this since the 90s. Just kind of pushing him, going like, we got this record label. We'll put your album out. We'll do whatever you want. You just put it on and we'll do this thing. So judging by the name, Rites of Percussion, I think it's probably a nod towards like Stravinsky or something, or like some, like this, it might not be, but like this idea, I picture like the Rite of Spring, and I picture all these ideas like that. But it's just this bizarre masterpiece. The whole album is cut up into about 10 tracks, I think, or like 11 tracks. But there are 13 tracks, but it's not meant to be listened to track by track. You're supposed to listen to the album as a whole piece. According to Dave, it's like 38 minutes long. Now, I don't want to play a 38-minute long song, so I toyed around with every song in the album. It was hard to pick, so I just said, we're just going to listen to the first song, the first 5 minutes, because that's the only part of the album we can listen to without having a beginning that doesn't sound like it's really a beginning.
I'm with you.
All right. So this is one that came from Ipecac, like I said there. So, treasure trove of awesome music. Oh, yeah, I didn't mention the name of the song, I guess. So the first song of the album is called Initiatory Madness.
Wow. That was different again, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
The one thing that struck me about it was what you usually hear when someone does a purely percussion piece. What you usually hear is a percussion set in a room, and they play it dexterously, however they do it. So you're here in the same room. But what I kept hearing there was multiple rooms. Did you hear that as well? Do you know what I mean by that?
It was very disembodied. Like it sounded like there was
some things in one space and some things in another space. And at first I was completely discombobulated by that. I was, where is this going? Where is this going? And then as time went on, I will listen to, excuse me, I need to take a wee drink here because my throat's gone. I will listen to the rest, or some of the rest of the album at least, to try and figure out where that sits in the whole sort of 13-track, 38-minute long thing. What I loved about it was, and it was probably put there for, I don't know why it was put there, but there were little bits of non-rhythmical stuff. I couldn't even really tell what they were, whether they were voices or whether he was triggering samples or whether it was synthesizers sort of off to the side in the background in this ambience. But what he managed to do was create all of these different ambiences all going at the same time. And that reminded me a little bit of, well, a name that I haven't probably thought of for decades. Stomu Yamashita. Is that even a thing? That's a Japanese percussionist, isn't it?
I don't recognize the name myself, but
Stomu Yamashita. Yes, I think that was. I have it in mind that he was with the Yellow Magic Orchestra, but I might be wrong about that. There was a guy with mad hair, a Japanese guy with mad hair. He had this big wig on, and he used to run up and down all these percussion things, and he used to make a big thing about doing that. And that's what this reminded me of. Reminded me also a little bit. It's a bit obvious, really, but the Grateful Dead's. What was it they called their drumming? Was it Rolling Thunder or something like that? When the two drummers used to get going, and it was a bit like that, but it would go on for half an hour, or even 38 minutes, or even longer at some of the bigger gigs. And there's always that dislocation for me when I'm listening to just a percussion track, because it must be because there's a track that Frank Zappa did called The Clap, which is just him playing percussion on, I think it's on Chunga's Revenge. And that has the same effect on me. It's like, I really don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to assess what I'm listening to because I don't have the other stuff. So when I was listening to that, I was clinging on to these little bits of voicey type stuff or synthesizer, whatever it was. I was clinging on to that, and then they would fade away, and I would be left in this maelstrom of beats again. So again, like the last track that you played by Mike Patton, probably not something I would deep listen to normally, but I'm awfully glad I did, because it's given me a whole bunch of stuff to think about. Because why am I having that reaction to percussion tracks? I now realise percussion tracks, I'm struggling with them. I don't know why. I need to figure that out. I need to do a percussion track, don't I? Maybe. I need to do something that's just all percussion and see what happens. Well, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was good.
I had that reaction to the music myself. Like I have a hard to dive into it, and it makes me also want to make music that sounds like it. Yeah. It's yeah, you know what? And I feel like a fool again because I just typed in Stomu Yamamatsu, and seeing that he had led a super group with Al Di Meola and stuff, and this guy's played with like everybody awesome, so he's quite an accomplished percussionist, and I need to like dig into this stuff that he's got going on here.
Yeah, he was the guy that came to mind when I was listening to that. I thought, God, I haven't thought about that guy in decades.
I might even have one of his albums.
Isn't it weird? Tucked away somewhere.
Who knows? Yeah, well, I've a few times I've collected like milk crates full of albums from people who are just tossing them out, and
yeah,
you dig through it and you always find a couple of gems where you're like, what is this? Like you probably know this band, but for me it was a gem for me in a thrown away record crate, which was a band called Flock, or The Flock, and they had an album called Dinosaur Swamps was the name of the album,
right?
And Jerry Goodman plays violin in that band,
right? And
that was he ended up playing in Mahavishnu Orchestra after that. and just, I don't know, like I found that it's got a cool album cover, and I never would have ever listened to the Flock Dinosaur Swamps if I hadn't come across the record for free.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
I probably have one of this guy's records somewhere, or if I didn't already throw it out or paint on top of it or something.
Yeah. Yeah, he was one of those guys that in the late 70s, early 80s, I seem to think, he was one of those guys that kept popping up, in all the magazines, because he was larger than life, I think. Yeah. So that's why he was there. Strange to go to that, not to think of that for so long and then try to drag it up from the memory banks. Yeah, I'm not even going to attempt to follow that with anything.
Okay.
That complements it, or I'm just going to go ahead because I can't think of anything that goes with that or doesn't go with it. So the next one we're going to play is by a Scottish artist called Loki, and Loki was, when this album was recorded, a rapper. That was all he was really known for. And to be a rapper in Scotland is to be like nobody, basically. You'll not be on the telly or on the radio. Nobody will know about you. You'll play gigs to 10 people, that sort of thing. And Loki has since morphed into a public figure known for his writing, for his one-man shows, and for his commentary on politics. He wrote a book called Poverty Safari, which did very well and won him all kinds of awards and things. So he hasn't made an album in quite a while. But when I wrote to him and asked for permission to play his stuff, he replied very quickly. So he still obviously sort of monitors what's happening on Bandcamp. And I wanted to include him because he's a rarity. He's recording in Scotland. He has a Scottish accent, which you'll hear, which is something that's sadly missing from the cultural landscape in Scotland. We don't, unless you go and seek it out, you don't hear Scottish accents in the media. You've really got to stick to the broadcasts that are meant for Scotland, and they're delivered by people who don't live in Scotland, so quite often the balance is kind of off, But Loki's authentic. His real name's Darren McGarvey, and that's the name he goes by now if you want to look up his books or anything. But he's kind of controversial. He's as quite a lot of rappers are, perhaps confrontational at times in his rapping, but the opposite in his political views. What he is trying to do is not exactly bring balance, but he's trying to point out to people, you might think it's their fault, but some of it is your fault, whether you're complicit in what's happening or whether you don't realise what's happening. And I think that's quite a valuable message. But this track that we're going to play is off the Trigger Warning LP, which has got it's got a great cover. It's just a yellow box, which I quite like. I don't know why it's yellow. Perhaps Loki could tell us. And the track we're going to play is a track called September 17th, 2014. And all I'll say about that is that the independence referendum was on the 18th of September. So this is Loki thinking about what his experience of the referendum campaign and the politics around it, and thinking perhaps a little bit towards the future and what happens the next day. So, yeah. So this is a very Scottish accent. This is Loki from the album The Trigger Warning LP, and this is a track called September 17th, produced by Crink.
There's no such thing as a humble opinion. I come from a long line of weak-minded men and gullible women, troubled children wait in line for another prescription to soothe the cultural symptoms of their disruptive inklings, the stunted wisdom of corrupted systems, drunken decisions burden the wicked, suffered in a subtle illness, an industrial sickness. We plunder the thickest for golden tickets, such resilience in our supple stillness. Sun is splitting, they survey millions, and so it seems us lonely consumers are imminently going to turn civilian. Pulses quick and high, priests of the industrial schism rushing in to prove they're worthy of the public's opinion. bargaining. But we've decided enough is enough. We no longer wish you to do our bidding, nor will we be seeking your permission. Like we're really daft enough to trust some politicians with our incorruptible vision. I spent my whole life on the margins of the world running. It stakes finally feeling like I'm part of something. We're like a family that always watch each other's backs. A street carnival, a festival under a flag. I lay in bed awake and wonder what the future will be like. Never been more certain I was right. Not long now, we only have another night. They're lining up to try and stop us, must be doing something right. We'll look back at history and claim that this was the day that we truly rose to the challenge. The day no manufactured narrative was overarching, when politicians were decent and stopped hopelessly pandering and using the capital handed to them by the lower classes just to buy the votes of the affluent off with lower taxes. Well, leaders really spoke for the heart as opposed to reading off of scripts composed by courts or lowly mandarins, speaking in the soulless language of polling and marketing. Tomorrow I put an X in the box next to the yes, because I want a country built on more than slogans and branding, where politics is for promoting understanding, where your chances of success are not reliant on your place of origin and your social standing. That's why I'm holding this flag and throwing my caution to the wind with such ferocious abandon. I've spent my whole life in the margins of the world running. It's nice finally feeling as if I'm part of something. We're like a family that always watch each other's backs. A street carnival, a festival under the flag. I lay in bed awake and wonder what the future will be like. Never been more certain I was right. Not long now, we only have another night. They're lining up to try and stop us, must be doing something right. When the sun comes up, we can speak with our true voice. On the only day we know we really have a choice. There's no fear in my heart, only pure faith that we'll get where we're going in God's good grace. People telling me these tartan Tories can't be trusted, that they'll sell me down the river when it's done and dusted. Why am I marching on the street? Cause it's something to do. Of course you don't agree with my view, but you have something to lose. Yes or no? Take a lucky guess. I'm demanding change now, I'm settling for nothing less. I'm sick of old politics, I'm crying out for something fresh. A government that isn't scared to stand up to the Murdoch press. Yes or no? In the face of fear, hope is best. Walking in the ballot box, I shed a tear and wrote an X. My heart rose in my chest as my scatterbrained dreams coalesced. I voted yes.
Right on. Yeah, I listened to that song before. I think because you sent me that on your first list and we didn't get to that one, and I did enjoy the song. And it's hard to pick up everything he's saying there, but yeah, he definitely has that idea of accountability, but community. Like this idea of just kind of all kind of taking a breath and sort of taking a good look at things and realizing that these politicians probably don't have your best interests in mind, but it's a big ugly system that we're all kind of getting chewed up into, and hopefully we can just kind of take a sideways step from it. And I don't disagree. So it's nice to hear someone thinks like that, or I'm sick of people trying to be divided, with some sort of minor issue, and it gets people argue all day long about this. We need to recognize this, or we need to acknowledge this, and we need to apologize for this or that. And it's like, no, really, like we need to just kind of move forward and continue to be, in a good way, but at the same time, who knows what's good for us anyway.